a staff at the IC, Mr. Ronnie Florence, has been elevated to act as Director of Corruption Prosecutions, but based on what the public has come into knowledge of, he's a gentleman who enjoys, or is alleged to enjoy, a particular relationship with no less a person than the PNP's General Secretary, Dayton Campbell, and that has to be of some moment, at least in my view. So I'm inviting your perspectives on this latest development before we get into some other aspects of this issue.
So I think some background from my point of view is essential to this entire matter. The PNP, through their General Secretary, their spokesperson on finance, and their leader, have been making statements dating back maybe 2 years now regarding investigations, and that they know, no, this isn't an allegation or an assumption that I'm making. These are statements that the PNP top-tier leadership, top brass, former General Secretary, current General Secretary, and President have been making regarding the Integrity Commission investigations. They have stated that they know the names, right? The PNP President went on record to state that when he is elected, if he is elected, he will disclose the names of the persons who are being investigated, right? For illicit enrichment, among other things. So, he's made it clear, and, they've made it, profoundly clear that they have information that is not readily accessible to the wider public.
Yeah.
Now, for months, Jamaicans have been wondering how. Different media houses have called them and asked them, to state how they know the names, or why not give the names now, or why make it a campaign promise XYZ. They have said that, when the time is right, they will disclose. Fast forward to, present time, it's now being disclosed that a very special relationship exists between the PNP General Secretary and the person who is now acting in a most delicate position. Now, for the IC to state that, they need more evidence in order to make any sort of investigation, then I have, I have a great issue in accepting that based on their own pronouncements in reports that they have done. And, that's where I want to segue here,
sure,
Marlon, because the IC has taken it upon themselves to do several investigations into conflicts of interest, and a word that stands out to me in all of their investigations on the matter is the word could. Could. So in the matter regarding Minister Main, Xavier Main, I'm not sure if you remember that.
Yeah, man, I remember that.
The IC said that they were investigating the potential or the possibility of a conflict.
In other words, they weren't going on anything more. No evidence was adduced or, dispatched to them. It was essentially,
Precisely.
an allegation, a concern that was raised, which triggered a particular probe.
An inquiry based on a possibility.
Yeah.
Right? As a matter of fact, I think the word they used for the heading of the report was possibility, investigations into the possibility, which means in the past, or at least when it refers to members of the Jamaica Labour Party, the IC has seen it fit to act evidence. Now that IC went further, Marlon, to outline their definition of what they consider a conflict, using the OECD toolkit, right? And in that they said, we're going to first lay the foundation. In the report they said we're going to first lay the foundation of what we consider a conflict, so that nobody can say it is I, Greg Christie, or it is I, Justice Panton,
trying to establish authority and an empirical basis to conclude X, Y, or
precisely.
Z. Yeah.
And they use this definition of conflict coming from the OECD toolkit. It says a conflict of interest involves a conflict between the public duty and the private interest of a public official, in which the official's private capacity, interest could, not must, not has, not in the past has, but could influence the performance of their official duties and responsibilities. I'm going to read it again. A conflict of interest involves a conflict between the public duty, in this case, the investigations that would be carried by Mr. Lawrence or anybody for that matter, right? And the private interest, that being the organization that is being led by one of his friends for over 20 years, in which the official's private capacity interest, his friendship, could possibly improperly influence the performance of their official duties and responsibilities. Now, using the IC's definition, using their textbook definition, this is the same definition that they used, Marlon, in the Holness Estate Bridge matter, where they're saying the PM has interest in real estate as well, so it's therefore a conflict. Same definition that they use. So my question is, why is a possibility sufficient to warrant an investigation when it relates to persons external to the Integrity Commission, but it is not sufficient when it refers to a conflict within the Integrity Commission? Why is a possibility not enough? And on the matter of evidence, if you need evidence of the possibility, we're talking about 20 years of friendship. We're talking about two men who went to law school together, who were friends before that, who were best men and groomsmen at each other's, at one another's,
maybe a case
wedding.
Where Ronnie Florence is the godfather. Maybe. We don't know definitively. I personally have not done the research myself, but we want Dayton Campbell to come and tell us all of the other things.
Precisely. So if these matters are true, Marlon, then there's a clear conflict using the IC's definition. Now, using somebody else's understanding of conflict, some people may say a conflict isn't triggered unless something comes to the fore, right? But using this definition that they have used repeatedly, just the fact that it could, not that it must, not that if it comes up he is going to act in any questionable manner, but the fact that there is a possibility, no matter how small, and the IC chair, being a former justice herself, would understand the application given under law to the word could, right? The different tests that they administer when the wording of a piece of document or law says should.
They go from the dictionary definition, because interpretation of law essentially
even the
something,
just the slight.
Hello? I think we are trying to reconnect. All right, so we're trying to reconnect with our contributor this morning, David Wright. He's a public affairs commentator, and he is essentially pointing and drawing our attention to established approaches taken by no lesser outfit than the Integrity Commission itself, as per respective reports that it has had. Yes, in relation to matters concerning a conflict of interest. And so I would make the point that the correspondence from Kamina Johnson-Smith and Ed Bartlett to the IC listeners essentially makes the point that decisions taken by Ronnie Florence will be viewed with suspicion, and that also has to be seen as instructive. You're rejoining us, David? Hello? Hello, you're rejoining us, David? It's again going to reconnecting, so we will try and sort that out.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, man, I'm hearing you now.
Yeah. So no, I'm saying there's another conflict that I've not seen shared.
See if you can remain stationary so that we are not losing the signal. But go ahead.
Yeah, there's another conflict that I'm not seeing shared.
Yeah.
And I just like to share it.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen persons coming to Mr. Lawrence's defense in stating that he's, the consummate professional, that he's, a proven
professional.
Yeah, in many different areas, but also that he is the son of either a current or a former justice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if that is the case, there's the possibility that Mrs. Lawrence Beswick, the current chair, would have some connection also to either his father or mother, whichever parent it would be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it would be a conflict for her to be adjudicating or deciding whether or not there is a conflict in the case of Mr. Lawrence.
Yeah. All right, I hear. Just for the benefit of the listeners and for clarity in this matter, neither the correspondence from the government leaders in the parliament, Kamina Johnson-Smith and Edmund Bartlett, nor my own comments or that of my contributor this morning, David Wright, impugn or raises questions as to the professional qualifications of Mr. Heath Lawrence. No one is suggesting that the gentleman, to our knowledge, has misconducted himself or is not eminently qualified for the post. The point being made here is a much different point, however. But continue, David.
Yes, I'm saying using the OECD toolkit definition of, a conflict and how to manage a conflict, the very possibility that there could be some improper influence is warrant for an investigation. The request for evidence or to put forward evidence is, overkill in what I would call defense of Mr. Lawrence or to justify the appointment. There is absolutely no circumventing it using their own precedent, using their own arguments. There is no going around it.
And there are even a couple other instances now. So before we even get to the investigator, let us look at Mrs. Prince Kamika. Here is a lady, she was a functionary at the IC, David Wright, who levied charges against the JLP's Marissa Dalrymple Philibert and the JLP's Leslie Campbell. She also proffered charges against the PNP's Dwayne Vaz and the PNP's Michael Phillips. There can be no question as to the judicious discharge of her obligations by this person, Keisha Prince Kamika. It has been, it has come to the fore, allegations, because it has not been, demonstrably proven, that Keisha Prince Kamika was essentially hounded out of her job. She was told not to reapply. She was told that her contract would not be renewed and whatnot. Hence this vacancy that Heath Lawrence now sits in. To the extent that the IC is an organization, the commissioners are essentially the persons who hold the operational functionaries to account. Why would it not see it fit to use the resources at its disposal, the commissioners that is, to undertake a probe? Because as the correspondence from Ed Bartlett and Kamina Johnson-Smith of last afternoon points out, David, yes, this could be advanced by making the appropriate inquiries.
Precisely.
You could get to the truth or ferret out what has transpired in this case by making the requisite and appropriate inquiries. What say you
and
on
quickly,
that?
Marlon.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you fully, because especially given the circumstances surrounding the possible conflict regarding Mr. Lawrence, I would want to even more probe this matter, because if the person who is acting in the position, right, has drawn such public interest because of a possible conflict. And then, following on the heels of that, there are questions about the dismissal or the forcing out the non-renewal of Prince Kamika's contract. Then there is a certain stench surrounding, the entire scenario, and I would want to get to the bottom of it, especially if I am the new commissioner or one of the new commissioners coming in. Then I would want to be, fully appraised of what is surrounding, this office and how to get to the bottom of it. I wouldn't want to just, pick up the basket and carry it further down the road.
Indeed. Because
so I think it is in their best interest and in the interest of the public in repairing the reputation of the IC to ensure that this is ventilated in the public, that it is done in a transparent manner so that the public can be fully aware of what's transpiring and that no doubt about the integrity of the integrity can be sustained.
The issue, David, now of how the IC staff, the recruiting mechanisms, because I have posited elsewhere that leaves much to be desired apparently, and is an issue that really should be brought to the fore. When Greg Christie and the Integrity Commission, along with the then chairman, retired Justice Seymour Panton, appeared before the Oversight Committee of the Parliament sometime in 2024, late 2024, the question was put to him on Greg Christie, that is, as to Ryan Evans's recruitment at IC in circumstances where it would have been clear, based on Mr. Evans's resume, that he served as essentially a political advisor or an advisor to then Minister Dr. Peter Phillips. Yes? What do you make of the recruitment at the IC? Do you think that there should be an appropriate mechanism for thorough antecedent checks in the way the military and other key and sensitive organizations undertake a screening of prospective recruits?
Absolutely. I think if the IC wants to be the bastions of integrity as they posit themselves to be, then they need to maintain their position on the matter across the board. Now, given that these allegations are relating to a certain party, I'll deviate from the point I was going to make, but I'll make it in another way. If you're opening a bank account at any financial institution, they ask if you're a politically exposed person. You follow?
Yes.
If you are doing business with certain entities, the same question is asked. Are you a politically exposed person?
The people who staff the EOJ are screened
and vetted in a certain
way.
And
because the EOJ is of considerable moment as the principal
as a chairman,
administrator
to sit as a chairman,
elections in the country.
Exactly. And to sit as a chairman or in any other senior capacity at the ECJ, you are also subject to similar screening.
Yeah.
Follow?
Yes.
I think the Integrity Commission must have this level of screening in place, because using their same definition of conflict, the fact that there could be political ties, it simply means that there is a possibility that there could be an influence, and if there is a possibility of an influence, there's no question about it, Marlon. There must be checks and balances in place to state, okay, because of your antecedents, you cannot hold such office or you cannot hold this post. Yeah, and it's not a political witch hunt, it's something that the opposition leader himself has called for.
I'm going to just read a quote I read just before I went to the 10 o'clock break, David, because Mark Golding, speaking at a political, a PNP rally in Montego Bay some weeks ago, said the following. He was imploring the Governor General essentially to be very judicious in respect of the persons being recommended for appointment to the IC as commissioners. And he said here, do the right thing for the people of Jamaica. Defend the Integrity Commission and make sure the people who are commissioners are independent, reputable people, not political partisans who are going to use their influence there or could do and give the perception that the thing is biased. You hear that key word used by Mark Golding? Give the perception. The question this morning is, what perception does Dayton Campbell's relationship with Ronnie Florence give in relation to any decision or non-decision that may be taken by the goodly gentleman Ronnie Florence going forward?
And that he also used the other word that I mentioned, being a lawyer himself. Could.
Exactly.
And that's what the OECD definition says.
And
could.
Give. Yes, the word could is here. And you're very spot on in that regard.
Because it does not need evidence, Marlon, which is what I'm saying, which is why I find the response strange, because
chairman,
there needs to be no assertion, but just the possibility.
So this business of cogent and specific information, those were the words, yes, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Cogent and specific information was what was requested essentially. And we're saying, hey, this hasn't been the standard that applies generally, because
and I just want to quote again from the Estate Bridge report that they did. No, from the Estate Bridge report that they did. And it's something that has stood out to me. They said if this potential conflict of interest is not managed properly, it may be deleterious to the public interest. And then they went further to say, notwithstanding the foregoing, no direct evidence was presented to suggest that there has been any impropriety occasioned by the referenced potential conflict of interest.
Was this the report having to do with the Beverly Hills construction, or
yes? It was regarding the relationship between
Norman Brown and
Norman Brown and precisely.
Very well. All right.
So their words that first they described it as a potential conflict.
Yeah.
And they said if this potential conflict is not managed appropriately, it may be deleterious to the public interest.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding the foregoing,
no evidence was adduced. All right, we have to leave it there, though,
to
David.
suggest that there has been any impropriety.
Indeed.
So there's no direct evidence, but it is a potential conflict, and for that reason, they said that it was deleterious to the public interest. They cannot consider matter. They cannot have their cake and eat it. They need to take a stance, and they need to lead by example and show the public, show the parliament how they deal with conflict and set an example.
Where they're involved. All right, thank you so much, David. Really have to leave it there, but appreciate your intervention this morning, my brother.
Yeah, no problem.
Good. So that was David Wright. He is a public affairs commentator and a marketing specialist. We're going to run to the break and come back with your calls. What we are seeing is a situation where the Integrity Commission is suggesting, do as I say, but not as I do. And the truth of the matter is that, like charity, integrity begins at home. And in my opening commentary this morning, I made mention of, allegations surrounding internal developments at the IC that really leaves much to be desired. Could it really be that persons jettisoned Keisha Prince Kamika, booted her from the IC because they were upset with her decision or indecision, or lack of decision rather, as it relates to proffering charges in certain cases? Could that have been the case? And if that is the case, what does that mean about the integrity of the Integrity Commission? How ironic. The Integrity Commission having questions and concerns about its integrity. Isn't that ironic? Isn't that ironic? They are the Integrity Commission. It's like KFC having no chicken. How can KFC have no chicken? How can the Integrity Commission, based on the allegations, have no integrity? Good morning, caller. Welcome to Straight Up.
Yes, sir. Morning.
Yeah, morning, Mr. Milton.
Yes, sir. How do I put it now?
You tell me, I don't know.
Yes, Mr. Morgan. That mouthful this morning, in my humble opinion, was a bit boring, sir.
Fine,
I
that's
know
fine.
this to say the least.
That's fine. You
Can't
ever
define,
hear
sir.
Mark Golding speak it?
No, it can't define. It can't define, you know.
No, that's fine, sir.
And I'm not,
the reason why
unlike
it's
you,
fine.
sir, unlike you. No, with the great service, unlike you, I'm not coming from the political side, no.
Yeah, man, you're coming from the diocese, the
No, Mr. Mark, with the great respect, you know, that no, the Integrity Commission, you know. And the one of the reasons why you are saying, why you are beating the commission to the ground, because of the response that they gave to your colleague, Senator and Mr. Bartlett, you know.
Excellent suggestion, Milton. I want you to walk with me for a moment. The correspondence from Kamina Johnson-Smith and Ed Bartlett, I just want to have a little reasoning, Milton. Zane, the correspondence from Kamina Johnson-Smith and Ed Bartlett, right? Touched on at least three things. The Ronnie Florence thing, the Keisha Prince Kamika matter, and this other investigator person who has since elected to move away from the IC. Zine? Now, based on how the IC operates, when things come to them attention, they set out to undertake a probe, right? Does the IC sit and wait for evidence, or do they take it upon themselves to go and undertake them probe? So why the commissioners don't see it fit to undertake a probe in terms of asking pertinent questions and establishing certain facts for themselves? What is with this business of cogent and specific information being sought? What's that all about? You tell me, Milton.
Mr. Morgan.
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Milton.
No party should, political party should be trying to want to politicize the Integrity Commission when it doesn't suit them.
Oh.
Because the Integrity Commission behavior as we speak doesn't suit the ruling Jamaica Labour Party.
You believe that what I am doing is politicizing the IC?
What?
Milton?
No, you don't get, you people don't get what you want out of it.
No man, Milton.
Right?
Milton.
Yes,
right.
yes, Mr. Morgan, with the greatest respect, allow you to speak, you know. So
Sure, that's why I'm allowing you to. Go ahead.
and
go
your
ahead.
guests, just allow me to know, big man.
Yeah, man.
What you are trying to get from the IC, you are not getting it.
Oh, which
And
is what?
if you should get it, then it wouldn't be integrity at all.
But
And you are saying the
what
other
I'm trying to get from the IC,
left to be
Milton.
desired from the integrity. You mustn't.
All right, let us just establish some foundation in Milton. Do you agree that the Integrity Commission plays a very important role in the Jamaican landscape?
That is without doubt, big man.
Do you agree that the Integrity Commission should operate with utmost professionalism and integrity?
So in your opinion, they are not doing that now as we speak?
We're reasonable, General.
Let me ask a simple question, man. So in your opinion, they are not doing it as we speak?
That is correct, Milton. And I'll tell you, I'll cite a couple examples. When a staff member of the IC is shot and Greg Christie said what he said, you were listening this morning, so I need not repeat it. Do you find Greg Christie's comments to be appropriate? Were they appropriate comments, Milton?
The former chairman of the IC told us when he met with the Committee of Parliament the reason why Greg Christie used the word. The chairman.
He told us the reason why Greg Christie used the word.
Yes, he told us.
What did he tell us? He told us
pardon
that
me?
Greg Christie was stricken by grief. He was grief-stricken and whatnot. And he
Big
was
man.
traumatized.
Justice Panton told
Rubbish,
us that
man.
times and
Milton,
times again
Milton.
the government
Justice
promised.
Panton, that gentleman,
Big man,
Justice
just allow me to
Panton,
speak, man.
spoke rubbish in the parliament.
Big man, allow me to speak now, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Justice Timo Panton told the committee, the oversight committee that looking into the integrity commission business in Parliament, that the government promise to provide them with security. So that may be the reason why the man used the word as the government.
Milton, Do you
Right,
accept?
sir. So nobody, big man.
watch me
Let's tell
now.
you, say the thing where you go on with this man,
Watch
the
me now.
mouthful was boring, you know. And
Milton, watch
don't
me
take it
now.
lightly, you know. It's poor. All some of your labor rights. Colleague, I say, boy.
Milton, I am happy that whilst boring, you endured the commentary and you listened intently. Let me thank you for that. But I'm moving on to another matter, Milton. Just hold a moment. Just hold a moment. Do you accept, Milton, that if an utterance is unprofessional or intemperate, it may cause a stakeholder to seriously lose confidence? So in other words, as a member of government, having regard to Greg Christie's utterance where he said, ask the government that, with a clear intimation basically, that I would have good reason and a good basis on which I would repose no confidence in Greg Christie.
So in other words, you have not bought what Seymour Panton said in Parliament.
Seymour Panton can't sell me anything, sir.
Oh,
not even a bottle of water. Not even a bottle of water.
That's why he said he has to carry feed more water, kind of
can't sell me anything.
Get him intoxicated.
Nor a bottle of water.
You remember I used that word, sir?
I'm not even sure if Seymour Panton was seized of the importance of the job he was in, the role he was in as chairman of the IC.
Panton say he has to take his own water to Parliament, kind of want you people to have him intoxicated.
And Julian Robinson was in the Parliament and laughed at that most offensive and reprehensible utterance. He deemed it funny when that was an insult to Milton and Marlon Morgan, in as much as it was an insult to the parliamentarians.
Not like when the most of the Prime Minister walk out of the Parliament and shut it down forever. Not unlike that, right? Would you agree?
Not unlike what? Which Prime Minister walk out of Parliament?
Walk out of Parliament and shut down Parliament for the whole time. Cramp it.
I don't know.
Not unlike that.
I don't know to what you refer. Is there any other observation you wish to make, Milton?
We have a lot to make, sir. And the gentleman who claims say send Mr. Holness thing to the TOJ and the FID. Is that man operated only alone, himself alone, sir?
You see, he's the director of investigations.
Yeah, but him alone couldn't. He alone, with the greater respect, man, he alone couldn't send it, man.
So let's be clear.
Because if I let chairman and then they find not certified.
Mr. Milton.
Yes, and he alone couldn't do that, Mr. Margaret, man. Don't mislead your listeners.
Pause a moment and do some listening now. The Integrity Commission has some separation of duties and portfolio areas, right? Keisha Prince Kamika was in the portfolio of corruption prosecution. Ryan Evans is in the portfolio of corruption prevention. Craig Beresford is in the portfolio of information and complaints, right? So it was Kevin Stevens who undertook the investigation as director of investigation, and he essentially said, well, he's not able to make certain conclusions, and therefore he's passing it to the TAJ and FID. It was him, through the executive director and through the commissioners, that essentially tabled a report to Parliament that they since passed to TAJ and FID.
Different kickle fish, so he did say that
anyway.
This man in what made remarks, sir. You only pitch man the man alone.
I didn't need to say that.
No,
but
no,
what is clear is that it was the Kevin Stevens portfolio.
No, you change gear, you know.
Change what gear?
Yes, you mentioned some other bodies, because that place, that
the portfolio is Kevin Stevens' portfolio, Milton. And Milton, I say this to you in closing and in running to another call. I'll simply say this to you. The Jamaican proverb, you can salivate and be delighted with Kevin Stevenson. There may be somebody else who comes along one day and the same thing that Kevin Stevens is doing in relation to one set of people may be done in relation to another set of people.
Yeah, including Mr. Marvin, if you don't mind. If you don't mind. If you don't mind.
Anyway, you have 20 seconds because I'm running to another call. Go ahead.
I think you have created history Monday. I have been listening to talk show from about 71, 72. And it's the first I heard a fellow...
to create more history, whatever that history is. A fellow talk show host, him try to bring his colleague talk show program into disrepute. Yeah, and I'll create more history in that regard. Thank you, Milton.
Big up yourself.
I want you to remember the words, though. Today
Big
for
up
me,
yourself,
tomorrow
man.
for you. Yeah, man, all the best, my brother. We're running to another call. Good morning, caller. Welcome to Straight Up.
Blessings. Morning, sir.
Hello, good morning.
Morning, sir. Morning.
Yes, sir. Go ahead with your contribution
Yeah,
this
man.
morning.
I wanted to weigh in on this whole Integrity Commission saga
Uh-huh.
because it is apparent that something just not adding up here. It seems as though there is one law for a certain sector of society and
You mean
another
one
law.
law for the Mede and another law for the Persians? One for the
Possibly.
Jews and one for the Gentile?
Yes, sir. Because what I don't understand, Sir Morgan,
Mm-hmm.
is, and you just alluded to it, and that's one of the reasons I called, because I wanted to bring this point to the fold.
Yes,
Is
Chief.
how is it? What's the method, or what it is that drives the Integrity Commission to launch an investigation? The
Yeah.
process of them investigating an individual. And if
Complaints.
my memory serves me right, it was a very simple method. I could pick up the phone tomorrow morning
Yep. And
and
trigger
call
an
the Integrity
investigation.
Commission.
Yep.
Right. And trigger an investigation. Now, I don't know if they have asked the persons who would have made certain recommendations for an investigation, if they asked them the question that the good justice is
As in,
asking. No,
provide
it is
the
to provide the evidence.
Cogent and specific information. In fact, one of the recent reports of the IC caller, yes, concerning construction at Beverly Hills, unearthed precisely what you're alluding to. In that, the member of the public was not seized of the fact that Andrew Holness does not own the development in question. They just assumed that it was so. And essentially, they touched base with the IC and proffered a particular complaint which triggered a particular investigation. But as we saw, even in circumstances where the IC would have since adduced and satisfied itself that this property was not in fact owned by Andrew Holness, they issued a report where Andrew Holness was still named in it and was at the center of it. And we, some of us in the public, believe that that was deliberate and by design. But go ahead, Chief, with the rest of your observations.
The other part of it, Sir Morgan, that I'd love for you to weigh in on, is the fact that, you know, the commission is saying, well, the chief is saying that you need to provide evidence. And the public is noting that the commission is the one who usually go in search of the evidence, because what they usually have pertain, you know, is that you would name an individual without evidence, and then you pursue to find evidence to back up what you have what you have announced.
And that's
And I
how they have
think
done their work. Kevin Stevens
Right.
would write letters left, right, and center and issue them to people. So you are the
Exactly.
person now under an obligation to respond to Kevin Stevens' letter and so on. Now, I want to make an important distinction, caller. The matters
Yes, sir.
we're referring to concern the IC in relation to its operational bit of work, meaning Kevin Stevens as Director of Investigation, Craig Beresford as the Director of Information and Complaints, and so on. That's in the operational realm. The commissioners are serving essentially like a board. So they are, you know, that tier above the operational people. But even so, as the correspondence from Kamina Johnson-Smith and Edmund Bartlett of last afternoon indicates, yes, the commissioners should find and may find that making appropriate enquiries, making appropriate requests of persons will advance considerably the pursuit of facts in this matter, in the matters raised, especially that touching and concerning Mrs. Prince Kamika and the circumstances surrounding her departure from the IC.
But on the surface of it, Sir Morgan, just looking at it with the layman, just looking at it on the outskirts of it, the replacement, or the gentleman who is currently acting, which I don't think anybody can question whether or not he is qualified or not. That's not our concern or my concern. I'm simply saying, was this individual already employed to the agency, to the commission?
It would appear so, yes. So
Because
Mr. Ronnie Florence was apparently a staffer in the area, in the portfolio area of corruption prosecution, because in organizations that's one of the things that typically happen. Someone who has a certain degree of seniority and experience in the space is able to serve in an interim way, or is able to act until such time that the higher post is filled. So I would have to apprise myself as to the capacity in which he had been serving, whether he was assistant director or deputy director.
Yeah, I think that would be important for the public to sort of know what was his substantial role at the commission before elevated to act in that capacity. And the question is, now that this information is out in the public space, I mean, there's no question asked. We don't need to ask any question whether or not the gentleman is affiliated. You just alluded to some of what exists in public life, where if you move to open a simple bank account, one of the questions asked is whether or not you're affiliated.
David made mention of it, yeah.
Right. So that being said, why would this not apply to this gentleman? And the truth is, if it is that there's a hint, if there's the possibility of a conflict of interest, isn't that sufficient for the director to just step aside? Or not the director, but the powers that be, who would have made a decision for him to act? Isn't that sufficient for them to just rescind that appointment?
I have observed a clear deficiency and perhaps a deficit, caller, in that the IC is a very sensitive and key, is a very critical commission of parliament. And at this time, you're not getting the sense that the recruitment at the IC is taking place with the degree of screening and filtering that ought to apply, because it is mind-boggling that Ryan Evans, a gentleman who served Peter Phillips as an advisor, could be a director, a very senior official at the IC. Then can you imagine some of the other junior staff? You may even have former PNP-YO presidents serving as officers at the IC. We don't know. We can't rule it out.
So why can't we request that the entire list of persons employed at the IC be made known to the public? Because I think this is of public importance and of public interest. I think we should request that list of individuals.
You're correct.
We are paying people.
I know why you're correct.
We have to believe that there might be other players in there.
In a similar situation, yeah.
Yes. And in these areas, we have to shun the very appearance
in other words,
of evil.
What if we have a sister of a particular parliamentarian?
We don't know.
Who don't know. You know?
But it ties into what happened before Mr. Morgan, because prior to where we are now, there were situations where politicians would have gone on public platforms and made certain statements that would put doubt in our minds now as to what really was happening at the Integrity Commission. When persons tell you that they know what is coming, they know what is the result of reports and the contents of reports that is coming, and they were actually right.
At one point, when Dayton Campbell realized that he did, go on too much, he might try draw brakes and haul and pull up. Yeah? That's what happened last year. When him catch up on himself that, hey, they have essentially been speaking in ways that would make it very evident and very clear that they know things that, like David Wright said, other members of the public may not be so apprised of. But just to come back to your call about the staff members, You are spot
Yes.
on, because remember now, one of the things about integrity and anti-corruption is the whole notion of openness and transparency. So the question
Yes.
is, will the Integrity Commission be amenable to being open and transparent in this particular regard?
And can we ask them if, with some level of alacrity, to release the names of the complete staffing at the institution, so the taxpayers, the people who are paying the bills, can feel confident. If I don't know if there's any, we can get confident in the IC anymore, but at least so we can be appraised of the persons who we are paying on a monthly basis. Because I think this is Morgan, I think this thing is at a level where I am not certain that any amount of inserting new wine into a unclean vessel is going to solve this problem, because I think the IC has gotten to the level where I doubt if we can get it back on track without doing a total purging and a revamping of the entire hiring process and to some extent the mandate of the Integrity Commission. I think we have to look at it on a comprehensive level and take some very
because
drastic
this
action.
organization is in its infancy, and there's too much riding on it in terms of public trust and confidence for us to be not getting it right. And at present, the IC is not getting it right. We have to leave it there though, caller. Really want to
Appreciate
thank you for your intervention this morning.
No problem, sir.
All the best, my brother. Good. We run to the break as we take the NPR news at 11 and come back with more here on Straight Up at 11:10.
News Talk 93 FM. Heard.
Both commuters and public passenger transport operators alike, the government of Jamaica has moved to approve 23 additional routes for taxi operators across the island. Now, this development, listeners, comes amid ongoing conversations about improving access, efficiency, and the regulation in the public transportation sector. But what does this move really mean for taxi drivers and commuters? To help us break it all down, we're joined by the president of Transport Operators Development Sustainable Services, TODS. He is Edgerton Newman, and we're seeking to finalize our connection with Edgerton Newman. Of course, he's no stranger to us here at Newstalk. He has been a long-standing stakeholder in the public transport sector. We note that the JUTC, listeners, in terms of the background to this issue, the JUTC has had exclusive license for operations in the KMTR on a number of routes. Now, having regard to the JUTC's constraints as it relates to its capacity, its operating capacity to adequately and reliably service these routes in respect of which it has exclusive license, there has been a degree of supplementing of the JUTC by public passenger transport operators. Yes? And so taxi operators have essentially been stepping in, filling in the gap, as it were, and stepping in the spaces, the respective spaces, to ensure that there is a degree of continued service and coverage on the respective routes. So essentially, there are some 23 of them which the government has since moved to open up, as it were, so that there are new routes provided, and hackney carriage, i.e. route taxi operators, are now able to ply these routes, and they are doing so now in an unfettered and unrestricted way, of course subject to the Road Traffic Act and the rules of the Transport Authority, right? But We are still not yet making contact with Mr. Edgerton Newman. In the meantime, listeners, I'm going to invite your calls. Our numbers to participate on the program are 876-212-9824 or 876-462-0919. Please feel free to call in and discuss any issue that you may wish to place on the agenda. Yes? Again, our numbers are 212-9824 and there's also 462-0919. Well, based on the intervention that our caller Milton made on the program earlier, there is a clear, indifference that we are picking up. A clear indifference that we're picking up. And that is for the members and supporters of the opposition PNP. They are no doubt feeling delighted that their opponents, yes, are the ones raising complaints or taking issue with the commissions and indeed omissions of the Integrity Commission. But as I said in my exchanges on this program earlier today, there may come a time, Milton, listeners, particularly PNP supporters, that the shoe may be on the other foot. And that is why you want an institution to operate in the way that an institution operates, so that any hint of injustice that may be happening in relation to one set of people now, there's no likelihood or possibility of it happening to another set of people in a subsequent dispensation. That is very important. That's the whole point of a quasi-judicial outfit. That's the whole point of an institution such as the Integrity Commission. They must be so professional, they must be so above board that they are not brought into disrepute, and there is no hint of hanky-panky, no hint of corruption. We have seen what has happened in the case of the FBI in the United States. Ideally, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the FBI, should be operating or should operate in a way that wins the trust and commands the confidence and respect of the American people. But you have had all kinds of developments in relation to the FBI that strain credibility and in fact erodes the trust and confidence of the American people. And it's the same thing here in relation to the IC. Though the work of the IC may prove to be from time to time politically advantageous to one set of people or another. So for example, when Dwayne Vaz of the PNP is charged and when Michael Phillips of the PNP is charged, you may have green shirt wearing people jumping up and, having a song and dance. Indeed, when Marissa Dalrymple Philibert is charged and when Leslie Campbell is charged, you may have orange shirt wearing people jumping up and engaging in a song and dance. But the point we're making is that at all material times, at all points in time, the work and the decisions of the Integrity Commission should be of such that there is no hint of any conduct that is injudicious or unprofessional. And that is not the case at present, because there are questionable or actions and of course questions that have to be raised and considered in relation to the conduct of the work of Kevin Stevenson. Yes? You do a report. In the conduct of the investigation, it came to your attention that the house that was allegedly owned by Andrew Holness. The property, the development that was going on was an Andrew Holness development. You were doing that investigation, and you since came into that knowledge, but yet you still penned a report and produced, tabled a report, submitted a report rather to Parliament, where you had the Prime Minister featuring prominently, yes, essentially being the subject of the report, when to your certain knowledge, that property has nothing to do with the gentleman. Because each Jamaican, each company is a subject of the law in their own right. Each body corporate. And a body corporate has to do with its principles. And that development at Beverly Hills, at the material point in time, had nothing to do with Andrew Holness. Yet you made and had Andrew Holness featuring prominently and figuring in your report. Now, again I say to the comrades who are delighted with this IC issue because of political advantage and what they think it may mean for them and their prospects in terms of electoral prospects and electoral fortunes. Be ye careful. Chicken Mary, hawk may very well be near. Today for me, tomorrow for you. And I'm going to read at this time something from Pastor Martin Niemöller. It is captioned, "First They Came." It reads thus: "First they came for the communists, but I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. And then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me." We're going to come back to this by Martin Niemöller after fielding some calls. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Senator Morgan. How are you doing?
Morning, sir. I'm good. And you?
I'm good. You know, I just have some concerns with the Integrity Commission, this entity that we are paying over $2 billion to. You know, one that has supposed to have the highest level of integrity. We are questioning the actual integrity of the Integrity Commission because of what they have done.
And I believe that in and of itself, caller, is unfortunate. The fact that KFC is being questioned for not having any chicken, it is mind-boggling, and quite frankly, it is untenable.
Most certainly.
But go ahead with your intervention this morning.
I look at some series of events. In 2023, when the opposition leader was on his campaign trail, and he was saying, you know, illicit six. At that time, he had the audacity to question him. He asked, "Andrew, are you one of them?" Now, following up that, you had Dr. Dayton Campbell and Julian Robinson making almost precise date and time when reports were going to be tabled. And when I look at those three events, I have to raise the question, are they getting information from the Integrity Commission? Who is leaking information from the Integrity Commission? And when I also look at a series, the first letter that was penned by Greg Christie, it is now online, and it stated a sequence of events regarding that first investigation into Western Construction and the Prime Minister in terms of conflict of interest.
Yeah.
When that report was sent to Parliament, on the same day, Prince Kamika made a ruling that the Prime Minister has no case to answer to. 1 month after it was sent to Parliament, it was tabled, and the Integrity Commission held on to the ruling for 1 month and 3 days. It's not like the ruling was lost. They intentionally held on to the ruling.
So
and
you have a
sorry,
bundle.
and
You have a
say the
bundle.
Prime Minister's name.
You have a bundle, and you submit an aspect of the bundle, withheld a pertinent bit of the bundle, i.e., the bit that touches and concerns no charges to be proffered or laid against the Prime Minister in relation to conflict of interest and whatnot. And the point you're making, caller, is that especially when you consider the period of time that passed between the ultimate submission to Parliament of the various aspects of this thing, you're saying that that was quite instructive and it leaves much to be desired.
And from that time, I think we should have looked into the Integrity Commission. I would say our oversight committee has been weak as far as I'm concerned. And we have an entity such as the IC that has given some tremendous powers. They seem like they are highly mighty and above the government itself.
And you know, the truth is that none of this, caller, should be surprising. They say a leopard does not change its spot. Greg Christie served in a previous dispensation as Jamaica's Contractor General. The approach that Greg Christie took to his work left much to be desired. So much so that the parliamentarians, the legislators, felt it necessary to put in what has now widely been come to be known as a gag clause. Because what used to happen before is that in his usual and characteristic style and bombast, in his overzealous style, Greg Christie used to undertake investigations or indeed commence investigations wearing his hat as Contractor General, where people's names would be bandied about and thrown out there only for nothing to come of it ultimately. Yes? But the damage would already have been done to people's reputation because the news would blare out. Contractor General undertaking probe into so and so and so. And the damage would already be done.
Because they're using the IC laws. They're using the IC laws. They're doing it still because they cannot be held to account for their actions. Now, I have one more thing before I go, Senator. And I fully support this call from Mr. Warmington. We must have an operational audit and a compliance audit of the Integrity Commission. Operation meaning that we want to look at their internal processes to make sure that they are following what the IC is supposed to be doing. And compliance audit, making sure that the Integrity Commission is abiding by the Integrity Commission Act, because we know that the Integrity Commission is a creature of the law and they're supposed to be following it to the T. We cannot have the Integrity Commission circumventing the IC Act, the very thing that they use to throw cold water whenever the government speaks or anybody in society speaks. Remember, the Integrity Commission Act, whatever says. If you're going to use that against us, that means you are supposed to be following the IC Act to the T. And we're calling on the new chairman to make sure.
Operational
audit and the compliance audit to make sure that the IC is following the rules and regulations as well as the law that was given to them as their mandate to operate with.
You raise a good point.
They can be making up laws and operation for themselves.
You raise a good point, caller, because oftentimes people hear this 5-letter word and it is just bandied about loosely, the word audit. And what many listeners and members of the public don't appreciate is that there are many kinds of audits. Now, when the Integrity Commission produces its annual reports each year, an external auditor essentially produces its financials, and it is included in the annual report. So that audit really touches and concerns the finances of the entity, a financial audit. There are several other types of audits, and you just enumerated 2. I will add a 3rd. You just mentioned, caller, a compliance audit and operational audit. There is also performance audit.
Oh, sure. Oh, man.
In other words, how effective vis-a-vis their mandate, their statute that created them, is this entity. So just to be very clear, those kinds of audits in relation to the IC would be instructive, because it would give us a sense as to the degree to which they have been open, transparent, and faithful, and the degree to which, quite frankly, they have conducted their affairs in keeping with what was appropriate, or what is appropriate and sound procedure.
Certainly. You know, one last thing, and I'm going to go. In Parliament, I heard the former chairman, retired Justice Seymour Panton, Kevin Stevenson, and Greg Christie giving three different explanations for the same law. It means that they are not cohesive. There's no understanding as to what's his best practice as it pertains to the laws that they're using.
Do you remember the matter, sir? Do you remember the matter?
I think it had to do with the tape. No, it had to do with the gag clause that is in the IC, how it is interpreted until the tabling of a report. That is the one that they had the issue with. And three different persons had three different explanations.
And there was another instance where there was a variance, at least between Kevin Stevens and this gentleman here, Seymour Panton, the retired justice, right? The former chair of the IC. Now, that matter has to do with when a report or an investigation of the IC is complete. Because Kevin Stevens acknowledged, that listen, when he submits a report to Parliament, that essentially signals the completion of a bit of investigative work. Because you recall, there were many members of the public who were describing. I heard people like Clive, what's that guy name, man? Former PNP man there. Clive Williams, his name? Yes, that gentleman.
Yes.
He was on all angles, and just like Diane Jackson Miller herself, waxing warm, suggesting that the report was an interim report. And based on Kevin Stevens' own assertion and remarks at that now infamous oversight committee meeting of the IC late last year, there is no such thing as an interim IC report, and the fact is that when a report is submitted to Parliament, it signals and constitutes the end of an investigation. I want to thank you for your intervention this morning, caller. I'm going to take the break and come back with more of your calls here on Straight Up. Stay with us. Of our program this morning, and we're going straight back to the phone lines. Remember, the lines are 212-9824, and there's also 462-0919. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning, Marlon.
Morning, Sir John. Let me wish for you holy and happy Easter, this being Holy Week, and of course the long holiday weekend lies ahead of us. Let me wish for you a safe and holy Easter holiday.
May I wish for you the same, my brother.
Very well.
And for your listener callers.
Indeed.
I wish them the same.
Let me thank you, John, on their behalf. What's up now?
Yes. A couple things here.
Sure.
I remember in 2022, a bank BOJ report that come out and talk about the increase in borrowing, especially for personal loans, the decrease in borrowing, agricultural loans, and the increase in the delinquency rate. On Monday, the BOJ put out another report that between 2023 and 2024, the personal loan portfolio grew by 38%, and the delinquency rate grew by 43%. What we are noticing is that people are having difficulty in a quote-unquote best economy to pay them loan. people who are borrowing money to do education, you know, for what they call repair for them house, might be get a vehicle because the bus, just like 1983 when Siaga disbanded the JOS, the same thing, Mr. Vasno, I think I talk about him expansion, he might try to disband it. Because Mandic would try and then bring it to a certain level, put back and look at Mr. Vaz, I try to finish it now. What is happening? Is that people having difficulty repaying money them borrow for the things. You cannot grow, people cannot grow personally on loans. As a matter of fact, we are being told that 77% of people who take loans, what does that mean? That them parents, our family, of yourself, some property them have to pay back the loan. We are living in dangerous times.
All right, I'm going to ask you to pause at this juncture, John. I'm going to ask you to pause at this juncture. Now, you have placed on the table some increases having to do with delinquency rates, particularly on personal loans, per reports of the Bank of Jamaica. Now, when it concerns loans, because from time to time, you will appreciate and agree with me, John, that people, whether they're purchasing a car, they're doing, as you say, a construction on the house, so they go to the bank to try and add on a room to the dwelling and so on, right? So people do that. What is most important in a national economy is to manage the economic affairs of the country, John, in a way that lends itself to or causes stability, a degree of certain. No, John. You did not talk about. No, General. No, John. Me no want go that route, them General. You heard a sound play a while ago. Guess who sound a play now? And me a talk now, and my son a play now. So listen to part I sound, you know. Cause peer big tune a draw right now. Money pull up and all kind of things. Listen me now. In an economy, you want stability, a degree of certainty and predictability. So when government manages the affairs of the country such that inflation is moderate and interest rates are stable, contrary to what we have in the 1990s. If people are delinquent, what it speaks to is not a question of policy failure on the part of government or hardships brought on as a result of increased taxes and all kinds of hardships on the people. What it speaks to, John, is essentially gaps in personal stewardship and financial management.
Let me tell you something, brother. Let me tell you something. What I think what the report says is that people have to skip meals.
Which report said that? You mean the FAO report?
I'm going to the why.
Which report? You mentioned the BOJ report a while ago. It's not the BOJ report said that. You must now cite your FAO report.
My brother, listen again. What I'm saying to you now is that people, when you go to the supermarket today, I want you to go for a receipt from April last year. Where by supermarket. And you go to the supermarket today. And by the same items that you buy last year, April, after the amount of increase.
All right. 125%. I'm going to ask you now to stick up in, John. I hear you, and I'm going to do the homework. But I'm going to put this to you and ask you this. When Dr. Phillips put tax on Patty and every what's it not Zane, what we bought, hold on. Remember say no, John, remember now, we have two mic. You have a mic and me have a mic. And you DJ your tune and then me DJ my tune. A tune for tune I go on as a Zane. So watch my tune now. When Mrs. Simpson Miller was Prime Minister, the basket of goods that we bought in March of 2012, what happened to the basket of goods the following year, March 2013? Did it go south in terms of the cost or the price, or did it go north in terms of the cost and the price when Dr. Phillips put on him tax pan party and all kinds of taxes?
Okay, I'm happy you mentioned it. I'm going to say something.
That tune sound like it right you off.
9 years.
That tune right off.
No, listen. 9 years. You're going to come back to me now and tell me what happened 10 years ago and 15 years ago. I'm going to say something. In that time.
No, man, because some tunes are timeless, John.
Listen to me, my boy.
Some tunes are big tunes and them timeless. Like Peter Tosh and Dennis Brown tune them.
In that time,
Yeah?
when the PMP has set the economy in such a way, the people are sacrificed. And laugh about IMF. No, listen to me. Let me don't talk.
Yeah, man. Go ahead, because you are DJ now. Me soon come in.
IMF test.
Yeah.
We are like past people said, but now we have seen we are that passing of IMF test. I've been the country at a certain level and know the people not benefit. I just only alone benefit.
All right, so I'm going to say this to you now, John.
No, that's fine.
No, John. And I say, my brother, you can't drop a tune around. When you drop a tune, a bigger DJ I'm going to write off your tune before we move on. So pause for a moment, John. Pause for a moment. You can characterize it, John. You can characterize what is happening here in any way you want to characterize it. Me I characterize it as tune for tune because me know say me a big artist relative to you and your jump and sound. So watch me now. Watch me now, John. The biggest tax on people in a country is inflation. And separate and apart from inflation, you also have taxation, which erodes how people fare in their pockets. So just to be very clear to you, John, what we have had in this country are 8 years of no new taxes and 10 budgets of no net new taxes. And just to be very clear to you as well, the Prime Minister, John, when he spoke in the budget debate, he made mention of 3 important figures. Inflation outturn at 30%, 80% and 50%, and he cited the respective years. And you know which political party those inflation rates coincide with? The PNP, my friend. So when you come out to inflation and the cost of goods, your sound can't play.
No, one of the problems you must understand.
Yeah?
It's like official figures. It's not the reality what people are facing.
Oh,
that's what we talk about.
But John, you contradict yourself because you just called me to talk about BOJ figures.
Next point, I'm talking about something else.
But John, we'll soon come to the something else because I have all day with you. No, man. I have all day with you. Remember, I said Bunting them get enough credit, man. Julian Robinson get enough credit. So watch me now, John. You are contradicting yourself. John, you see when you ride a bicycle, be careful how you're crashing a big trailer. Be careful how you're crashing a big trailer. John, Marlon Morgan is a big trailer, a big hell of a trailer. When you ride a bicycle, be careful with the piece of bicycle.
That's why Damon Crawford right here after I am. Nice my brother.
Damon Crawford ride a Rambo bicycle. Me a drive a trailer. But listen me now before we move to this next point.
Move on, man.
Yeah, beg for move on. All right, me go easy up.
The next point.
Yeah, man, go ahead.
JLTC.
Yeah. Since you are beg, me easy
up.
At
that time, Mr. Vaz talk. People need to fact check Mr. Vaz because it's like enemy of the shoot.
You mean I come here fact check you a while ago?
Mr. Vaz said.
Because you just talk about official figures. And you started your intervention this morning with official figures from the BOJ. So I like how you fact checking Daryl Vaz, like how I am fact checking you, John Pollock.
Listen to me now.
Yeah, man, go ahead, my boss.
The JOTC
yes
was formed to help the most vulnerable in society and to move people. That means that production can continue.
Take place and so. Yeah, man.
What I've noticed, when I say another move, 23 route and get a taxi. No problem. Because taxi man have to live too.
What is the basis of that? What is the basis that
But what Mr. Vaz is forgetting is that some of these routes where people who have sacrificed so much to build the country, and I know senior citizens, these people rely on the JOTC.
So, John, your understanding of the route is that it will no longer be served by a JOTC?
That is it.
I thought it was a liberalization of routes.
No. Oh, just like what it did in the 80s. And then I run.
So, John.
Till Peter will come back and follow the JOTC.
Right,
that isn't probably the Jamaica Labour Party.
Right, so you said here a bit a while ago, may I use 90 seconds to say my bit now?
Yeah.
All right. So my understanding, as I was saying earlier on the
Oh,
program,
you
John.
understand it, but it's not right.
Well, my general, you talk your talk a while ago. Since you say we're not doing a DJ thing, you are preach your sermon, you preach your thing a while ago. Me are going in a New Testament now, and me are going to preach a tougher sermon than your sermon now. Altar call and everything are going to go on now. See? You agree? A foolishness, but it will win souls for the kingdom.
You don't really know to it. Because Jamaica Labour Party, I hold 24 seats alone now. So go on.
24, you call it. All right. So anyway, watch me now, John. The JUTC has had exclusive license in the KMTR, the Kingston Metropolitan Transport Region. That KMTR stands for Zin. Now, the JUTC, based on obvious constraints, has not been able to adequately serve this space, and for quite some time we have had route taxis providing invariably a supplemental service. Now what the government has moved to do is to essentially liberalize in terms of this exclusive license to serve these routes, so that the service being provided by the JUTC is being properly and appropriately supplemented by taxi operators, but it does not mean the JUTC is out of the space. So that retired civil servant, John, or that pensioner who used to work at Goodyear that was closed down by Lambert Brown can still access the JUTC, including moving from Morant Bay to downtown Kingston, or from Castleton to the corporate area.
Hi, brother.
Yes, sir.
Enjoy
all right. And then, as I said before, enjoy your Easter, John. And look forward to your call again tomorrow and subsequent editions of this program. Thank you, John. All right, that was the great John Pollock. But the caution to him, I trust he will heed that caution. Be very careful when you're riding a bicycle. Put on your helmet and other protective gear. Good morning, Al.
Morning.
How are you, my brother?
I'm good.
All right, so how it ever work, Al, is that you have a talk your talk and then me talk my talk. No, John, Al.
Yes.
As the man start the man out of the blocks. Al, I'm just saying.
I called you, you just want to be arrogant, ignorant, man. Let me talk, man.
All right, go on talk. But me just make you know, say, you have a talk and then me talk.
With a government senator now, you have to know to conduct yourself in a brethren. Come on, man. Well, Humpty Dumpty on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? The fact that they break down and break them fall, who shall put them together? I heard you this morning, Marlon.
Yeah.
In your eloquent voice, along with your friend.
Milton said boring.
Trying in order to rewrite history, and at the same time to tear down the present IC.
Cite an example of rewriting history. Cite one example of me rewriting history.
You come out and you start to put date and start to insinuate about IC is giving information to PNP. That's all you was doing this morning. Everybody know. Let me just say this to you. It is you and Warmington and all, Montague came out and start to attack the IC. And the road was paved because, God, just like when you get unsigned letter to accept that, will not support the CCJ. And it was taken to court. All I know, a senator have to sign that. The reality is that Hitler chose a minister of propaganda for the war of 1938 to 45 because the first thing that is on trial is truth. And you have been putting truth on trial every day you come on the radio.
So I am Hitler's minister. I am Hitler's minister.
Boy, let me tell you, you have on Greenberry, and the man then PNQ has been Captain Morgan, and you run out and say who you is. So if the people then put you into category of President which was Hitler's propaganda minister, then boy, you really fix that. Because guess what? This morning when I heard you, somebody called me, I never listened to the program until Conrad come back. When somebody called me and told me, so you was on the line, and the things you have 1 hour and 50 minutes, I attacked the IC. I said, man, I could never do that. So I called the IC members and informed them to listen to you. Yes, I called them in the office.
I'm happy you did that.
Yes, to listen to you. Because all that you was out there to tear people characters down. You can't do that, Brethren. As a minister, as a senator, what you are to do is to be that guardrail in order to preserve the Integrity Commission.
Right, so Al, I'm going to ask you to pause at this juncture. I'm going to ask you to pause. Just to quickly say to you that I have not defamed, nor, yes, have I misled in relation to any commentary of mine or any observation I've made in relation to the IC. You can continue with your monologue.
Well, I have the tape that you can't delete it. I make sure I started to keep it after the person called me. And I make sure I kept it because when you try to talk about Julian, look at us say something to him, Marlon. He's a young man, you know, sometimes young and exuberant. Andrew Holness goes to school with the deputy commissioner who is now in charge of crime. Is that an offense? Andrew Holness know Mr. Blake before he become whoever he is. Does that make it an offense? Andrew Weath is in charge of the parliament. Andrew is in charge of the executive. What greater cronyism and irresponsibility and nastiness
you're
is that?
reaching, and in reaching, you're exhibiting a degree of desperation.
No,
Juliet
Holness
is an elected member of parliament in her own right, whether Al, Marsh, John, or Milton like it or not.
Yes. Well, let me tell you something. It is a family that is running this country, and the people done with that family tree. That's we
know which family it will not be.
Family tree comes to enrich themselves and family and them friends.
We know which family it will not be.
Yes, family tree. Let me just say something now. The family tree must come to an end. Let me tell you something. For years, you sit in a bed and a plan how you must deal with people and you come and put off. And when bill must be tabled, you put it off.
Right. So when
things must be presented in the parliament, you sit on that bed at night time. And when
so I'm going to ask you this now, and I want to hear from you. Yes. When people say, today for me, tomorrow for you, what you understand by that?
What I understand them from that is that if you sow evil or goodness today, you will reap it tomorrow. Let me say this to you.
So those are things you will comment to the PNP on a morning like this?
You're a legislator in the Senate, the highest.
No, man, you don't need to remind me of what me is, man. Remember, say it's me, you know. Me know what me is.
No, but I tell you, hold up. You don't know who you is. Because there are people who are living in this world who don't recognize the value of the world, you know. Even when you're trying to tell them how they value the belief. They don't know. You don't know that you pass laws in this country that affect our generation to come, you know. You don't know. Your character and behavior cannot be seen as a propaganda and a propagandist in order to circumvent truth. You can't be that. Here what happened. Here James Douglas, I always follow this in your station. We have big jaws talks all the time on nationwide. I lie. Last night I saw you on CVM TV with talking about bag of rubbish with you and George.
So my job, John, my job, Al, is to do a lot of talking. Yes?
Yeah, but you must make sense, man. The Bible says, you know what the Bible says, my friend Marlon, a good son taketh instruction from his father and become wise. A foolish son heedeth not to the counsel and teachings of his father and become foolish. Don't be like the prodigal. Don't want to get everything and go waste your time.
I'm going to put something to you now, Al. I'm going to put something to you and have you respond to it. Have you respond to it? Yes? First, they came for the communists. And I did not speak out. Well, I'm talk now, John. I'll do a little bit of this thing now, see? So watch your style now. First, they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me.
I'm glad you quote Hitler. I'm glad you quote that recording from Hitler, and I am an expert on this
studies of Hitler and President.
You're expert on many things.
Listen to this. You has become, like in the Hitler's war, you have become the PR for the Jews. You have become PR for the Jews. What you have just quoted in a Jamaica,
you mean PR for the Jews or PR for the Nazis?
In this government, in this country, you can't speak against the government and police will come find under your bed. That is what you're saying.
But you're on the radio now doing that, Al, and nobody's coming for you under your bed.
But I'm not sure. I'm not sure the program in it. I'm not sure. No, you can't say to the brightest man of the world, you know. I am now saying to you. I am now saying to you, when you quote that, you go to your conscience to quote that, you know. All that I'm simply saying to you, I wish you the best in your life. What you do today will affect the generation to come. What you and I must live for is a legacy that people will talk on countenance and people will try to...
Which is why we want an integrity commission. Al.
And you come and tear down the one institution where we have, you know, mash up this.
Which is why there's no critique of the IC. Yes? No pointing out of fundamental flaws and gaps in relation to the conduct of members of the IC.
And Julian, you said that they give Jason Campbell and Julian information prior to them speak 26 and 27.
My brother, I said no such thing. I said no such thing. But if you want to be of that view, you can elect to be of that view if you want.
Everyone who was listening to
but anyway,
that implication, that is what...
So we are essentially making a point, Al, and listeners, that there is no critique of the Integrity Commission that is to be seen as attempting to tear down the Integrity Commission. The effort and the idea is to ensure that we have an Integrity Commission that is fit for purpose and operates above board and seen to be operating as such, because the success of the Integrity Commission rests on public trust and confidence. We are supposed to, as members of the public, look on at the IC's work and repose trust and confidence in how the IC conducts its work, and we should not be in a position where we have to view the work and actions of the IC with suspicion. That is the simple point, Master. Anyway, we have come to the end of the program. I want to thank our guests, our callers, and of course my broadcast technician and producer, Tanya Richards, for the support this morning. To advertise with us, listeners, please call our sales agent